Hi and welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville and this is continuing my quick series of things I'm seeing out of Baselworld and what I'm enjoying. And now I'm going to talk about Breitling. So Breitling have really introduced three broad ranges of things at Baselworld. The first would be the Premier. They've launched a new version in their Premier edition of a Bentley chronograph and a new version of a Norton chronograph. They're both very nice looking watches, very attractive, but really they just add to the existing series and there's nothing particularly new or innovative. They don't change the line much. In the Navitimer range, what Breitling have done is really there's two aspects to what they've done over Baselworld. The first is that they've introduced, or in a sense reintroduced or reissued their 1959 Navitimer. So this is obviously the 60th anniversary since then, and they've done a really nice job here. They've introduced, they've gone back and modified their new in-house movement, removed the automatic componentry, that's slimmed the watch down, made it manual wind. All of which really adds to this like recreation of the 1959 original, and side by side, certainly in the pictures, I find it very difficult to tell them apart. They've done an outstanding job in this recreation. In the metal it might be completely different, but certainly from a pictures point of view it looks amazing. I don't like canned limited editions. There's some sense to this, you know, it came out in 1959, they're making 1,959 variants. Kind of makes sense. I wish they didn't do it, but I can live with it. The other thing they've done in the Navitimer range is produce these retro-inspired versions of the Navitimer. They are not retro watches. There is no this is the one that, these are the three watches that are based on the old defunct 70s airlines, TWA, Pan Am and Swissair. There is no historical reference for these things. They are standalone. They reach back in time to things that were in the 70s, but they are not, the watches are not of themselves recreations of 1970s. I think that's a really cool way of doing this kind of retro thing. It's a way of being creative today using the materials of the past as opposed to simply recreating the past, as they did for the reissue. On one hand, for a reissue I get it, but for these kinds of retro inspired, taking elements of history but then incorporating them in a new and modern way, I think that's really quite clever, and I really like what Breitling did there. The other thing too is these are not limited edition watches. Breitling have said that they will be made for a short time, but there's no maximum cap on the number of people that can buy them. So in the event that they're very popular, in theory there will always be one available for someone who wants it within the time that they're building these things. So again, I'm not a big fan of limited editions, but I've got no problems with the idea of a short run, and in fact I think that's a great way of creating what will one day be a real collectible, as opposed to the Franklin Mint watches of something like the Blue Alpinist. The biggest change, of course, has been in the Super Ocean series. That they've basically completely redone that line. It starts, there is now a Super Ocean pretty much for everyone. At the top end we have a 48mm titanium cased monster that moves through 44mm, 46mm, 44mm, 42mm, and then dropping down to a 36mm. As we move down from 44 to 36mm, the water resistance falls from 2,000 meters to 1,000 meters to 500 meters and finally to 200 meters. In all cases, Breitling have completely overhauled their look. Gone are the big, flashy, all-polished days of probably 10 years ago, and what we have now is DLC or just straight brushed steel sides, completely matte dials, big, chunky, raised indices, massively engraved images. Numerals on the dials. These things are clearly built for work. None of them will actually be used that way, but it's certainly how they're built. And it's Breitling almost trying to make a statement that their dive watch will be a tool watch, not some kind of fancy schmancy dress diver. Interesting move from Breitling, but I think it works well for them to allow that, especially now that the Premier line is becoming more that kind of dress function. If they can make their other sports watches even more sporty, even more tooly, that's probably a really good move for them. So that's it. That's my take on Breitling. I think they actually had a pretty good show. Nothing outstanding, nothing that's going to break the bank, but certainly a good solid outing that shows that brand is getting a new sense of where it is and where it fits. So I think that's not a bad outcome. So if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and there'll be plenty more content like this. There's also I also do watch reviews, look at what's going on in the industry, talk broadly about collecting and using watches. So there's plenty here for everyone, and as I said, please subscribe and you'll get more of this later. Thanks very much.